What's wrong with people having to sell their homes to pay for social care? You could argue it's progressive and it stops people passing on wealth to their children, which causes future inequality.
I think people who've worked hard and saved all their lives want to be able to pass on their hard work onto their children. I think that's natural. And what's wrong with what the government is doing is that they're breaking a promise, because actually, if you've got low or modest assets, savings, you aren't going to be protected from having to sell your home to pay for your care. But if you're well off with a big expensive home, you will be protected. That's not what was promised. And I think the real problem with this is that ordinary working people are going to face a massive tax rise, not to improve care services now, not to protect their own parents' homes, but to protect the homes of millionaires. And I think that's unfair and it's wrong. And I really hope that Conservative MPs who want to stand up for their constituents in places like Ashfield, Mansfield, Barrington and other parts of the country where people aren't well off, who are hardworking and they don't want to face that tax rise, I think they should join us in the lobby and vote against this tonight.
The government are at least trying to get a grip on this. They say it's not perfect, but it's a lot better than it was before. It's a fair argument from the government.
Listen, if people are going to have to pay a national insurance tax hike, council tax rises too, they want to see, what am I getting for my money? Am I going to get better care for my mum who has people come round and help her get up, washed, dressed and fed? If she has to go into a care home, are we actually going to protect her house? No, it's the poorest who are going to be taxed more to protect the assets of the wealthy. And I think most people will think that's completely unfair. The government needs to think again. And what we are calling for is a 10-year plan of investment, but also crucially reform. We need more money in the system, but we also need change. We need a decent pay rise for frontline care workers. We've got big shortages at the moment and we've got to sort that out. We need to do more to try and keep people in their own homes for as long as possible. I mean, I'm sure you'll know, and people watching this, their families, everybody wants to stay in the family home for as long as they can. So we need to have the reforms that help people stay at home. That's better for them, and it's actually better value for money for taxpayers. Because if you end up going into more expensive hospital or residential care because you can't get the help you need at home, it's not good for you. And it's not good for taxpayers. So investment, yes, but also reform, and it's got to be done in a fair way.
And you say you are against ordinary people paying for this tax rise, but what would the Labour Party do to fund its alternative plans to get a social care system that's fit for purpose?
Well, I think if you're asking people to pay more taxes, you have to have a plan. And we have no plan for reforming care. We now know that actually if you've got low or modest assets, you're not going to get your home protected. That breaks a promise, not just not to increase taxes, but breaks a promise that you wouldn't have to sell your home to pay for your care. So the very first thing we would do, and we're going to do tonight, is oppose that change because it's unfair. And I think if you're, as I said, if you're asking for people's money, you've got to have a plan. You don't just go and, in your daily work, if you've got a small business or whatever, you just don't go and ask people to say, give me the money and then I'll tell you much later on what's going to happen. We haven't even seen their white paper on social care. If you want to ask people for their money, you have to show them that you're going to spend it wisely in the right way that improves care now and protects people's assets in future. And that's what we're saying should happen. We've also set out our plans to support families. Actually, the vast majority of the care in this country is provided by unpaid family carers. Husbands, wives, sons, daughters who are just trying to look after the people they love. And they are having a real struggle at the moment too. We've got 1 in 3 unpaid carers has to give up work or reduce their hours because they just can't get the support they need. Again, doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to businesses who lose their skills, and it doesn't make sense to the taxpayer either. If people are giving up work when they shouldn't have to. There is a really big challenge here. A really big set of reforms need to happen. The government actually hasn't put forward the reforms we need, and yet it's asking people for money. I just think that's wrong.
finally, Liz Kendall, today is the day of David Amos's funeral, and of course we all send our love and our thoughts are with his loved ones. I just want to know, have you changed the way that you do your constituency surgeries in the light of his murder? And of course that comes following the murder of Joe Cox a few years back.
Well, we have had the police in again to look at everything we do to see if there's anything we can do to make things safer. And I'd say that's not just for MPs; it's crucially for our staff. You know, who I really want to make sure they are as safe as possible. You know, I want to be as open and accessible to my constituents as I always have been, but I need to make sure we do it in a really safe way. So we've had another reassessment of the office. What do we need to do? Is there anything we need to change? But like MPs across the House and in all parts of the country, we're trying to get the balance right here. But I would just say for today and tomorrow, I can't imagine what it's like for Sir David's family. And I hope they will see an outpouring of love and sympathy and great support and wonderful memories of the man. We heard in the House of Commons, you know, all sorts of things about him and what he'd done and his background. And it made us, you know, cry and laugh at the same time. And I'm sure that will be the spirit today and tomorrow.